Okay, so imagine for a second you're packing for, like, the ultimate road trip.
Oh, yeah, I know this drill.
You've got 3 of your best friends. You've got coolers full of soda, camping gear, maybe a guitar that, nobody actually knows how to play.
And there's always that one friend who brings a suitcase the size of a small refrigerator.
Always. So what do? You end up playing Tetris in the trunk.
Okay.
You shove the heavy stuff wherever it fits, maybe sit on the lid to get it to latch.
And as long as it clicks shut, you're good to go.
Exactly.
In a car, what's the worst that happens? Your back bumper is a little low. Maybe you scrape a speed bump.
Right, or the steering feels a little floaty.
Mm.
But you're still going to make it to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
But today, we're taking that exact same scenario, the friends, the bags, the fuel, and we're putting it at 5,000 feet. Because
Okay.
here's the thing. If you treat an airplane like a Honda Civic, the consequences are not a scraped bumper.
No, not at all. In aviation, that game of trunk Tetris is literally the difference between flying and falling. It can be the difference between a great trip and, well, a headline.
So today we're doing a deep dive into a topic that, on the surface, sounds like the absolute most boring part of flight training. We're talking paperwork, we're talking math, we are talking aircraft weight and balance.
I can practically hear people reaching for the skip button. Weight and balance just sounds like a lecture.
Right.
But stick with us.
Yeah.
Because once you peel back the layers of the FAA handbooks, this isn't about paperwork at all. It's really a high-stakes wrestling match with physics.
We're going to look at why gravity is constantly trying to, hunt you down, why sitting in the back seat might be more dangerous than the front, and this is the part I'm really excited about, how students are learning this right now without ever leaving the ground.
And that's the key. We aren't just talking theory. We're going to look at a specific solution called the SIA Sim that is changing how future pilots, even in middle and high schools, are understanding these forces.
Our mission today is to figure out how to turn math into survival skills. So let's start with the heavy lifting. Literally, the weight part of weight and balance.
Let's do it. At its most basic, flight is this constant battle between 4 forces. You've got thrust, drag, lift, and weight.
And gravity weight. That's the one that never takes a day off. It never gets tired.
Never. So to get an airplane off the ground, your wings have to generate enough lift to overcome the total weight of everything. The plane, the fuel, you, your friends, the bags.
So what happens if you just, bring all your friends and their heavy bags without running the numbers?
Well, you run straight into the overloaded problem. And it's more nuanced than you'd think. It's not always as simple as the plane just won't fly.
Okay, because I was reading the weight and balance handbook, and it seems like a slightly overloaded plane will often fly, which sounds even scarier.
It is much more nuanced, and that's where the danger is. It'll fly, but the performance penalties are severe. First off, you'll need a much higher takeoff speed.
Because you need more air flowing over the wings just to lift all that extra bulk.
Correct. So you're just eating up more and more runway trying to get airborne. If you're at a short airstrip with trees at the end, that's a critical problem.
You might run out of pavement before you run out of gravity.
Exactly.
Okay, but let's say you do clear the trees. You're in the air. Are you safe then?
Not at all. Your rate of climb, your angle of climb, they're both drastically reduced. You're sluggish. And here's the really scary part. Your stall speed increases.
We should probably define stall really quick. We're not talking about the engine quitting.
No, the engine can be screaming at full power. A stall is aerodynamic. It's when the wing stops generating lift because the air can't flow smoothly over it anymore. So maybe your Cessna normally stalls at, say, 50 knots, but if you're too heavy, the wing is working so much harder, so it might just give up and stall at 60 knots instead.
So you think you're flying at a safe speed, but because you're heady, the wing just quits on you.
Precisely. And if you're low to the ground when that happens, you just don't have the altitude to recover.
That brings me to this concept in the sources that really blew my mind, this idea of invisible weight. Because I think of weight as static. My suitcase is 40 pounds on the ground, so it's 40 pounds in the air.
And that's true if you're flying straight and level in perfectly smooth air. But planes move in 3 dimensions. We have to talk about G-force.
The G-load.
Right. The Weight and Balance Handbook gives this terrifyingly clear example. Let's say you have a plane that weighs 3,000 pounds. It's totally legal.
Okay.
But the pilot decides to make a steep turn, a 60-degree bank, maybe to circle a friend's house or something.
It's just banking the wings over hard.
Yep. In that 60-degree bank, the physics of the turn creates a load factor of 2 Gs, 2 times the force of gravity.
So the structure of the airplane doesn't feel 3,000 pounds anymore.
No. The wings are suddenly trying to support 6,000 pounds.
It instantly doubles the weight.
Instantly. Now imagine you were already cheating a little on the ground. Maybe you took off at 3,500 pounds thinking, it's just a little over, the plane can handle it.
Oh.
In that same turn, you're not at 6,000 pounds of pressure. You're at 7,000.
Wow. What happens then?
Best case, you bend something. Worst case, structural failure. The wings could literally snap. Or, more likely, you hit that accelerated stall we talked about. The wing just can't support that massive load and you can spin into the ground.
And the engine could be running perfectly the entire time.
The engine doesn't care. This is a failure of physics management.
That really drives home why the math isn't optional. Speaking of which, I want to talk about the standard passenger myth, because I read that for a long time the FAA used these standard weights for people, and they seemed optimistic.
Optimistic is a very polite way to put it. Yeah. For years, the planning assumption was that the average passenger weighed about 170 pounds.
I don't know many grown adults, especially with winter coats and boots, who weigh exactly 170 pounds.
Exactly. And it's a dangerous assumption. Let's say you have a 4-seat plane. You calculate for 4 people at 170, but they all actually weigh 220.
That's a 50-pound difference per person.
Right. Times 4 people. That's 200 pounds of extra, phantom weight you didn't account for.
In a big SUV, 200 pounds is nothing. It's a grocery run.
But in a small plane, 200 pounds is roughly equivalent to 30 gallons of aviation fuel.
Wow. Okay, put it that way. It's terrifying. By misjudging your friend's weight, you've basically added 30 gallons of invisible gas to the tanks.
And that leads to the ultimate aviation trade-off, the payload versus range problem. You have 3 variables: people, bags, and gas, and you almost never get to fill all 3 to the max.
So you have to make a choice.
You have to choose. If you want to fly 6 hours with full tanks, you probably can't take 3 friends and their golf clubs. If you want to take the friends and the clubs, you might only be able to carry 2 hours of fuel.
That's a tough conversation to have on the tarmac. Sorry, Dave, you're 15 pounds over. You're taking the bus.
It happens. Or you just plan a fuel stop. But you cannot negotiate with the scale. Gravity doesn't do favors.
Okay, so that covers the weight part. Don't be too heavy. But the balance part, the center of gravity, that seems way more complex.
It is. This is where it gets really fascinating. Understanding weight is just arithmetic. Understanding balance is all about leverage.
And the sources all use the seesaw analogy, the teeter-totter.
It's the perfect analogy. Think of the law of the lever. You've got the fulcrum, the pivot point in the middle. If you have a really heavy kid on one side and a light kid on the other, the heavy kid just hits the dirt. How do you fix it?
The heavy kid has to scoot closer to the middle.
Exactly. Closer to the fulcrum. In aviation, we measure this with moments. A moment is just the weight times the arm, and the arm is the distance from that pivot point.
So an airplane is basically just a giant, expensive seesaw balancing on its wings.
So specifically, it's balancing on its center of lift. The center of gravity, or CG, is the point where all the mass of the airplane is concentrated. If you could hook it with a crane, the CG is the point where it would hang perfectly level.
And the pilot's job is to keep that CG point inside a very specific imaginary box, the envelope.
Correct. And here's where it gets counterintuitive. Let's talk about the speed trap. This is when you load the plane so the CG is too far aft, too far back.
Tail heavy, like putting gold bars in the trunk.
Right, so if you have an aft CG, a tail-heavy plane, it actually flies faster.
Wait, hold on. Why? Why does having a heavy tail make you faster?
This is the cool aerodynamic part most people miss. So a wing generates lift up, but usually the nose is a little heavy, so the tail has a horizontal stabilizer that pushes down to keep the plane level. That acts like a counterweight.
Okay, so the tail is always fighting the nose a little bit.
And that downward push creates drag. It slows you down. But if you load the plane so the tail is already heavy, that stabilizer doesn't have to push down as hard to keep the nose up.
Less downward push means less drag, which means more speed.
Exactly. A tail-heavy plane cruises faster and gets better fuel economy.
That sounds great. Why don't we always fly like that?
Because it's dangerously unstable. It's like a dart. A dart has a heavy metal nose and light feathers at the back. That makes it fly straight. What happens if you build a dart with the heavy part in the back?
It wants to flip around, fly backwards.
Precisely. An aft CG plane is unstable. The controls get incredibly sensitive, and the absolute nightmare scenario is a stall. If you stall a tail-heavy plane, it can enter a flat spin.
And recovery from that.
Might be impossible. To recover from a stall, you have to push the nose down to get air flowing over the wings again. But if the tail is too heavy, the elevator on the tail might not have enough leverage, enough authority to lift that heavy tail and get the nose down.
You're stuck, just falling like a leaf.
They call it the killer CG. It lures you in with better performance and then bites you when you get slow.
Okay, that's terrifying. So let's go the other way. Pile everyone up front, forward CG, nose heavy.
This is the lawn dart scenario. The plane is super stable, it really wants to fly straight, but because the tail now has to push down extra hard to keep that heavy nose up, you have a ton of drag. It's slow.
Is it as dangerous?
It can be. The danger zone here is landing. To land, you have to flare. You pull back on the yoke to raise the nose and touch down gently on the main wheels.
But if the nose is too heavy,
Your elevator might not be strong enough to lift it. You literally run out of control authority, so you might slam the nose wheel into the runway first.
which is a great way to snap off the landing gear.
Or you just can't get the nose up enough to slow down and you run right off the end of the runway. So you see, you have to stay inside that envelope. It's not a suggestion. It's the physics of control.
It really reinforces that the pilot is not just a driver. They're a mathematician. Which brings us to the legal side. This isn't just a good idea, it's the law.
Absolutely. 14 CFR 91.9. The pilot in command must comply with the operating limits. If you fly outside the CG envelope, you're technically flying an unairworthy aircraft. It's illegal.
So how does a pilot actually figure this out? It's not calculus on the wing, is it?
Thankfully, no calculus, just arithmetic. But you have to be precise. You start with your terms. Basic empty weight is the plane as it sits, airframe, oil, unusable fuel.
And then useful load is everything you add.
Right. You, your passengers, your bags, and the usable fuel. And fuel is a number every pilot has burned into their brain. Standard avgas weighs 6 pounds per gallon.
That's a handy conversion. So 50 gallons of gas?
That's 300 pounds right there. That's like having 2 extra people on board.
So for every single flight, you have to do the math.
Every single time. You take the pilot's weight, multiply it by the arm, which is the distance to their seat. You do the same for passengers, baggage, fuel. You add up all the weights, add up all the moments, and then you divide to find your final center of gravity.
And you just make sure that number falls inside the box on the chart.
That's it. And an FAA advisory circular says this is a required part of your pre-flight briefing. It's a go, no-go decision.
Okay, but there's one more variable we have to throw in here. The hot day factor. Density altitude.
This is the silent killer. Air performance changes dramatically with temperature and altitude.
Because hot air is thinner, right, the molecules are farther apart.
Exactly. So the wing creates less lift, the propeller gets less of a bite, the engine basically has asthma.
So if you're borderline overweight on a nice, crisp winter day, you might be totally fine.
Yeah, you'll climb out like a rocket. But take that exact same plane, same weight, same load, and try to fly it out of a high-altitude airport on a 95-degree day.
It's a different story.
You might use the entire runway and never get off the ground.
Right.
Or you stagger into the air and immediately stall. The math isn't static. That envelope effectively shrinks on a hot day.
Okay, so I'm listening to all this, and I'm thinking, this is vital information. But it's also a lot of abstract stuff. Moments, arms, CG envelopes. If I'm a middle schooler interested in flying, this sounds like a lot of dry textbook work.
It really can be. And that's often a huge barrier. How do you internalize the feeling of a tail-heavy stall without actually risking your life in a real plane?
Which leads us perfectly to the solution we found in our research, the SIA sim.
This is such a cool thing. SIA stands for Students in Aviation. And just so everyone knows, it's pronounced SIA.
SIA, got it. And this isn't just a video game you pick up at the store.
No, not at all. This is a dedicated educational tool developed by a guy named Joe Canepa. He's a certified flight instructor, and the SIA Foundation is based out of the original Cirrus aircraft hangar in Baraboo, Wisconsin.
That's some cool history. Cirrus is a huge name in aviation.
Right. And Joe saw this problem. Schools want to teach STEM, but real planes are expensive and dangerous, and your typical desktop sim can be glitchy or hard for a teacher to manage. So he built the SIA sim to be the classroom standard.
What makes it different from me just running a flight sim on my gaming computer at home?
Reliability and focus. It runs on Linux.
For the tech people listening, Linux means it's rock solid.
Very stable. And for an educator, it's a dream. It doesn't do that thing where you turn it on and it says, "Updating Windows, please wait," while your class just stares at the wall. It boots up straight to a flight-ready state in just over a minute.
which is crucial for a 45-minute class period. You can't spend half of it troubleshooting.
Exactly. And the hardware is legit. It's not some cheap plastic joystick. It has a real yoke, throttle, mixture, rudder pedals, and critically, a trim wheel.
I want to highlight the trim wheel because that connects directly back to what we were just talking about with balance.
It really does. In a real plane, when you change speed or weight, you feel pressure on the yoke. The trim wheel is how you relieve that pressure and balance the force. The curriculum, which educators can get at studentsinAviation.com, lets a teacher say, okay, class, we're going to load this virtual Cessna 172 with an illegal aft center of gravity.
And we're going to see what happens.
And the student can fly it, they can try to stall it and realize, whoa, I can't recover, I'm spinning.
They get the muscle memory of the danger without the actual crash.
That's it. They can simulate that high-density altitude takeoff. They can see for themselves that they're going to run out of runway. It turns abstract math into a visceral experience.
And the foundation is actually getting these into schools.
They're moving fast. As of January 2026, the SIA Foundation has donated over 120 SIA sims to schools across the U.S.
Donated. That's incredible.
It's their mission. They also offer low-cost options for schools that want to build a whole sim lab, but the donations are key to opening doors for kids who might never have sat in a cockpit otherwise.
It's basically taking the pilot and command concept and giving it to 14-year-olds.
Which connects right back to the core of this whole deep dive. Flying isn't just hand-eye coordination. It's not just stick and rudder. It's a mix of strict physics, that weight and balance calculation, and hands-on skill.
The math keeps you safe before you even turn the key.
Precisely. We looked at safety circulars about loss of control accidents. That's the #1 killer in general aviation. Understanding weight and balance is the vaccine for loss of control.
It turns a passenger, who's just along for the ride, into a pilot in command, who owns the outcome of the flight.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So, here's a challenge for you, the listener. Next time you're packing your car for a trip.
Yeah, pause for a second. When you're shoving that last heavy cooler into the very back of the trunk, just ask yourself, if this car were a plane and I put all this heavy mass way aft, would I have enough elevator authority to keep us on the road?
Or would you be popping a wheelie all the way to the coast?
It really makes you appreciate those invisible forces that keep us shiny side up.
It really does. A huge thank you to the SIA Foundation for the work they're doing, and to you for diving into the physics of flight with us today.
Stay curious, watch your weight, and keep your center of gravity within limits.
See you on the next deep dive.